I, again, appreciate everyone coming. I think what we're going to do as best as we could with notes we took from people's testimony is do a more thorough piece of commentary back to all of you, because in the little bit of time I have, it's going to be very hard to respond to every issue that's been raised here, so we'll do that. We were talking to commissioners earlier about this. The reason that we do this session in November, which I admit is when a lot of people are not at the lake, that wasn't by design. It's just that's when we finish up most of our yearly monitoring, so we come up here. But I think what we talked about earlier, and I think what we'll do is perhaps come up and do updates perhaps in July when most people are here, have another meeting in an appropriate location. In this particular case, by next July, a lot of some of the additional work will be completed, so we'll have more to share. And so perhaps we'll do, you know, a late fall meeting and then one in July when most lake property owners and vacationers are here, so everybody can not only give us feedback, but also we can reach a larger audience. I guess I'd like to offer a few general comments. You've heard the phrase, I'm sure everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. I understand, as I've gotten into this again, that there are some unique issues with people who own properties in the coves. And we are trying our best to work through those, whether it's lake grasses, whether it's sedimentation buildup, whether it's lake levels that particularly impact people in the coves. To turn around and say that those issues are pervasive throughout the lake is a fact that simply is not true. Because most of the lake, with all due respect to those who think we don't have good scientists, we don't do proper methodology, for example, we did the survey of bay grass, of lake grasses, including Eurasian milfoil, in early July. So it wasn't after all the lake grasses had died off. All lakes change. This is not the same lake that it was, as many of you described it in glowing and emotional terms years and years ago. Everything in nature is constantly changing, including Deep Creek Lake. We are still relatively in a very good position in terms of the overall water quality of the lake. And you don't have to be a PhD to understand what's happened over time in the watershed. Look around you, look at the lake. To correct a few comments that were made about my discussion with the editor of your local newspaper, The Republican, I did not say, and I just reread the editorial based on a conversation you had with me, that the department or the state or the governor was writing off areas of the lake. That's a sort of hyperbole that becomes tiresome, very tiresome. What I said was, in response to a question, we have a dedicated fund, the Waterway Improvement Fund. It's funded by the sales tax on boat sales in the state. Because of the recession, our revenues are down about 50%. That's just a fact. I mean, I'm not making it up, that's a fact. People who buy boats tend to purchase them, particularly the larger ones, by taking out second mortgages on their homes. You remember when the recession started back in 2008, I think you remember, that lending dried up, second mortgages dried up substantially. They're starting to come back, but the boat industry in Maryland has not really bounced back significantly, so our revenues are way down. And those are the revenues that we use to do access to the lake, like launching ramps, to dredge, to do a number of things. And in rural areas of the state, I'm sure you all know this, but in a gross sense, because of your population base being less than in the large metropolitan areas, tax revenues that go to the state, in the case of Garrett County, are less than what you get back in funding. That's not to say that you shouldn't advocate for more. That's your right as a citizen. of the state to advocate for what you feel you need. Any area of the state that's less popular, like your county, always gets more back in expenditures than you generate in revenues.
Do they go to the lake? Really?
No, they don't go to the lake. They go to the general fund, with exceptions of certain tax and fee revenues that come to our department.
What about a credit for all our buy-down funds that went to the general revenue?
Well, again, I'm just giving you some comments back. I'm not.
You get a lot from us too.
You are very good stewards of that 13 million. That's right.
Let me continue. I'm not going to debate this issue with you now. References have been made to we won't dredge the coves. Now, those people who own property in the coves, I assume, realized when they purchased those lots, which were perhaps, I don't know, less in value than homes on other parts of the lake because they were in coves, are concerned about all of this. Let me tell you, with the Waterway Improvement Fund, for all the dredging we do as a general rule, if you think about this in terms of the expenditure of public dollars to benefit the boating public, we dredge and we pay for major boating channels when we have the funding, which we don't have now. We pay for 100% for major boating channels that are used by the general boating public. We do not do that for spurs and coves throughout the bay and all its tributaries. When we have revenue, what we do is provide greatly subsidized loans to local governments who then enlist the support of people who own property along spurs or coves to pay off the cost of dredging them. That's been the policy of the state for years, because once you go beyond that and start deciding which group of property owners who are not part of who don't live on a general boating channel or benefit from it, then number one, you have far more need than you can ever possibly accommodate. And then you get into questions, well, why are you benefiting this group of property owners versus this group over there, particularly when you can't benefit them all of them. Pardon me?
You're benefiting your lake?
Correct. We also own, the state owns the waters under the Chesapeake Bay and all of its tributaries. Several people again mentioned Ocean City. We don't put $500,000 a year into a maintenance fund for periodic replenishment. We put $1 million a year. But that's matched by another $1 million by the City of Ocean City and Worcester County, the county within which it's located. So that's basically a 50-50 match. The federal government puts their share in. We are trying our best to work through these issues. I think we have had much improved conversations and cooperation with this Board of County Commissioners. I want to give them credit for that. And more things are going to start to happen as we move forward. I would only urge all of you to think about the following. As long as people up here are divided as stakeholders, we will not achieve any of the goals that we need to hammer out. As long as all of you are divided, pitting people in Friendville against lakefront property owners versus fishermen and all that.
It's a problem. There's no division generally about whether we want the lake to survive.
I'm not talking about that, but I was up here last year and there was a lot more debate among various beneficiaries of the release of water from the lake, not as much this year. All I'm trying to say is, and it's up to all of you, but in my considerable experience in government, if you want to get things done, if you want to move the ball down the field, if you want to you need to have consensus, and you need to tone down the rhetoric and start working constructively with one another and with government, both here and at the county level, to see what we can develop.
Vice versa.
Pardon me?
And vice versa. You need to up your rhetoric, down your studies, and work with us.
Sense of urgency.
Right. As someone suggested, we can stop, believe me. We've been cutting our budgets every year, cutting them, not adding to them. If you don't want us to do this comprehensive monitoring program, which we thought was a good idea, when I came back to this department, just tell us and we will stop doing it. If you don't want us to do any of this work, we'll stop doing it. If you want us to turn the lake back to the county, or as someone suggested, to the property owners,
Not right.
what do you mean it's not right? But that's what you were saying.
We're saying action is better than studies. We're not saying studies are bad. We're saying a sense of urgency and some real action on the,
Right,
solving the
right.
problem.
Sir, sir,
Enacting those solutions.
sir,
Yes.
state government, local government in this state, revenues are way down. They're way down. Pardon me?
Well, let's talk about priorities. Where are you spending all the money?
Pardon me?
Where's all the money going that you have? I mean, it's a sense of priority.
We have
What's
s-
priority?
since the-
It's not revenue. It's not money. It's priority.
I'm starting to argue with you, and I apologize. I don't mean to do that.
I do too.
The only thing I'm trying to say is, we're trying our best to work with your local government, with your delegation in Annapolis, and listening to all of you to try to develop a consensus, because if we have a consensus over where we want to go with the lake, it's much more likely that funding will happen. As long as we are in the midst of a lot of these debates, I'm not saying healthy debate isn't good, but as long as we continue in this fashion, we're not going to get to a point where securing funding,
Well, let's just make the commitment to move forward. That's all we're asking.
that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do.
I think that was stated in recent campaign not too long ago.
Right, right. Well, anyway, I'm voicing my frustration. You have it. We're not potted plants in government. We also have frustrations. We're doing our best. Obviously, many of you don't think we're doing enough. That's fair. That's your right as a citizen to say that and to press for more action. I understand that. But I'm just urging all of you to try to come together with us and with the county government and see what we can do together, because there is a lot of competition for funding. It's not a period of great excess revenues in state government or local government. So the more we coalesce, the better chance we have together securing funding at all levels of government to help move the lake forward.